Hey everyone, I've got another video on the Canada gun ban situation. This one's actually more for the people that think that it's actually going to help, or that it might actually reduce illegal guns or reduce gun crime. And I gotta tell you, I think that the exact opposite would happen. Now, I don't actually think that the gun buyback is going to go through. I think that we'll have a change in government before any of this is actually implemented. But this is more of a what if. What if the Liberals did manage to implement the gun buyback as they want? Would it actually have a beneficial effect or some sort of positive effect on gun crime? And I'm here to tell you, I think it would actually have the opposite effect. And here's why. So, as a lot of people know, especially in the gun community, know, if you go to the gun forums, the YouTube comment section, even on videos that are not strictly like pro-gun videos, like you could go to like a global news piece on the gun buyback, or I mean, we could say CBC, but they don't allow comments because they can't, they put out propaganda and then can't, don't allow themselves to be challenged on it. But even in the news pieces, there are tons of people that are basically saying that they're not handing in their guns. And if there's that many people that are comfortable publicly saying that that's what they're going to do, you can bet that there's a whole bunch of other people that are thinking that they're just not dumb enough to say it in a public forum, right? And so you could, and this is probably why they've extended the amnesty twice already, because the RCMP and the federal government, they're probably thinking like, how are we actually going to do this if people don't cooperate? There's too many gun owners to actually implement this. But anyways, what could happen is, and what likely would happen if the gun buyback was implemented, is a situation where a lot of the guns that are basically legally owned now by licensed firearms owners end up on the black market instead. So these people that are not planning on turning in their guns, they're going to be in possession of illegal. If that happens, they would be in possession of illegal guns. And at that point, also keep in mind that a lot of these guns, they kind of fall in this gray area where it was after the long gun registry was canceled, and then recently, like in the last 2 or 3 years, they kind of started like a registry that's not a registry, where when you transfer a firearm, you have to tell the firearms officer like what you're transferring into who, and they say they're not recording it, but they probably are. I know the shops definitely have to do that. But there was this period of probably about 10 years where you could legally sell a non-restricted gun without any paperwork, as long as the person had a PAL. And so, a lot of people, what they might do is they might hand in some of their guns, they might keep some of them, and say, well, I handed them all in. If anybody questions them, they'll just be like, well, I sold them during that period, right? And there's no paperwork on that, so there's really not much that the government or the RCMP could do. But anyways, and I know that's what a lot of people are thinking. But anyways, what would happen is as, like, let's say someone is older, or maybe they just really need money, right? Let's say somebody really needs money and they didn't turn in all their guns that they were supposed to. Well, now all of a sudden they're going to be tempted by the black market, because they could get, instead of getting nothing or getting a pittance from the government, they could get several $1,000s for a gun that maybe is only worth $1,000 on the black market. Or another scenario might be if someone was really old. Let's say they were 70 years old, they didn't hand in their guns, and then they unfortunately die, and their family is going through their house, and all of a sudden they find a whole bunch of illegal guns that their dad didn't turn in or something like that. Well, once again, it's like, are they just going to turn them all over to the government for a fraction of what they're worth? Or would they be tempted to put them on the black market for multiples of what they'd be worth, on the legal market? And so I honestly think that there's probably already quite a few long guns that may have been sold into the black market by people that, purchased them legally. It's probably not a huge number, but there's probably some. But yeah, the scenario where somebody passes away and then those guns are sold onto the black market, I think that's a legitimate risk. because, you know, if let's say later on those guns are found to have been a crime committed with those guns, then, you know, if the RCMP start investigating, they'll be like, well, we didn't know, our dad must have sold them before he died. And then, you know, how can you point the finger at anybody, right? So it's a very low risk scenario, and there are people that are willing to do it. And, you know, I'm not here to pass judgment over people that would or wouldn't do that, but I'm just saying, I know there are people that would potentially do that. So imagine, you know, if you've got, let's just run some very, very quick numbers here. You know, if you've got maybe 500,000 people that have at least one of these guns that's on the ban list, and let's say 10% of them don't hand in their guns, you know, that's, you know, what would that be, 50,000 people. And then at some point those guns would probably end up, and you know, some of those people might have more than one gun, so let's say there's 100,000 guns, right? And then some number of those guns would eventually end up on the black market. So you could very, very easily, and those are like very low conservative estimates, right? You could very easily end up in a scenario where, you know, tens of thousands of new firearms enter the black market because of the ban. So I think it's in the best interest of the Liberal government, Canadians in general. I think it's in the best interest that we keep these guns in the legally owned system by people who have a firearms license, who follow the law, who store their firearms safely, and we keep these guns out of the hands of criminals. All right, take care, guys.